box on which I have applied, I've created UVs. So there's one UV per side, or rather per surface. Okay, now I need to arrange all this in this small space that is from 0, where is it? Yeah, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, like this little square here. The first thing you want to do is check the status of all these shells, and for that you go to this little button here. It's called shade UV shells. So to identify which ones are flipped and which are not flipped. So what that means is that when you are creating UVs, depending on whether whether this arrow is pointing outwards or inwards. So if it's pointing inwards, the UV also will be flipped facing backwards. So if you go inside, you should see that this is actually blue. You see? Actually, it's not blue. What is that? Must be okay. Right, never mind. So so here it is, because it shows only what is what the outside view is. So depending on whether it is facing inwards or outwards, you'll see. You know, I think my graphics card is acting up. You see, suddenly now this is red. Okay, never mind. So this is how it works. If the arrows are facing outwards, you should get blue, and if it's facing inwards, like it is here, you'll get red. And that's fine. We just need to fix it. You just need to flip it back. And here's how you do it. You simply, firstly, is to know how to visualize it. Okay, good. Now we can just go to the particular one that is flipped, that is red, and turn it blue. That is, blue is good, red is not good. Go to the red ones, and you go to modify, and you say flip. So now I'm going to show you some of the tools in these menus. So here's flip, flip, and you flip. Looks good. Okay. Now what we need to do is to start arranging it within this area. Now to do that, there are some interesting things we can do. We can select this, and let's focus first on the surfaces that you're sure are supposed to be equal in size. So here's one, and here's one, right? These are opposites, right? So these two are equal in size, and so is this, and so is this. But this one, even though it looks like this, it's, let's see. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, perfect. This seems to be the odd one out. Okay, look at this. This is supposed to be the same sizing as this. So what you want to do is, I'm going to scale this one up like this. Okay, so now we have everything in the equal sizes. It's after you do this that it makes sense to scale everything in or out, because now the relative sizes are all the same. Okay, now to arrange this, it's literally a matter of moving it and also rotating it. And to rotate, go to modify, and you see this little tool called rotate. You use this one, because when you go to the options, you'll see you can rotate it on exact angles. So rotating it is an exact thing. Of course, you can rotate it at other angles as well, but it doesn't really make much of sense to do that, at least not for this particular project. So, oh yeah, it's all relative. So okay, let me put it back. Good. So now when I want to rotate something, I rotate it on these angles like that. So we talked about moving, we talked about rotating, we talked about flipping this the shells. The next thing we want to talk about is this. When you are arranging things, as much as possible, it's best to arrange things like this. Let's make sure that this little button is turned on, and this is a radio button, so turn it on. What it does, it shows edges. Rather, well, it shows the edges completely, and because it's a box object, it doesn't really make sense because, well, every edge is going to be just highlighted. But this is the thing that's going to be useful even more. That is, when you select an edge, notice that when you select an edge, you see that its corresponding edge also highlights. That is, it's basically saying that, well, actually, or it's basically saying that these two edges are supposed to be together. Now, that piece of information may or may not be very useful, because sometimes you still want to keep it separate just to make it all fit. But sometimes that's not the case. You may think that, okay, I'll just go ahead and do this, put it together then. That is, I go here, I just rotate it like this, and I say, okay, here it is. I need to put it together, and yeah, this might mean just rotating it a couple more times, like that, and here. This is now, the closer I place it, these two textures will seam perfectly. That is, let's say there is this squiggly line that goes across as a texture and it just matches up here. For it to match up very accurately, these two need to be very as accurate as possible, so that when you paint a nice texture like this, it will be a very clean match. So how do we do that? Let's say I'm placing it here, not just because I like it together, but I want to really sew it together. Okay, and so now we bring up this concept of selecting edges and sewing it. And that's all under cut and sew. Now, because this is an introduction class, we won't be doing, I'll simply be walking through the basic tools. And so sewing is a good one, cut and sew. Let's look at sew first. So you select an edge and its corresponding edge, and then you say sew. When you say sew, it sewed it, but it kind of tweaked it also. Like, let me show you how. Okay, so put it here. Now it says so it just stretched it, and that's not good. And you'll see it actually made a weird angle also. So that's not good. So this is the kind of sew we need. Move and sew is a better one. Boom. So it takes this one and brings it, or it takes one and brings it to the other. So it keeps all the edges and everything looks nice and clean. Okay, now notice what this white line now does. This white line is basically showing cut edges. Now, because this is sewn, it's not a white line. Make sense? Okay, now let's say you made a mistake and I want to actually take it off. So I can't take it off, see? So, well, what you do is you select this and you just say cut. That's what cut is. All right, so that's cut, and there's move and sew. Cut and move and sew. So I'm going to sew it together again, like this. Move and sew, like that. So this is the thing. Even though you can do it, in fact, I can put together this entire. Let's do that. Let me put together this entire cereal box as a continuous texture, and see if that's going to make sense. It could make sense, because look, watch this. Put this together, move and sew. then these two, move and so. Now, this is why it's necessary to scale it correctly, because notice that if I want to do more and so, see how it kind of got tweaked a bit. And the reason is the shell size are not exactly the same. So let's do a good job of bringing it as close as possible. There used to be a wonderful tool to move the UVs very accurately, and it's not where it's supposed to be, or rather they removed it. So okay, never mind. I'll do a quick look to see where that tool still is. David, do you know where that is?
No, I'm not. I don't even remember which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can look it up though.
Yeah, it just got moved recently. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I just place it very close. So now when I do select these two and say move and so, there it is. And finally these two, what is this? Oh yeah, this is the very top, move and so. So before I do that, I'm going to move it and keep it exactly the same as far as possible. Oh, there we go. Select. Now for me to move these points, guys, it's not a vertex. It's not a vertex. It's actually UVs. Okay, because in this UV editor, we are interested in UVs. UVs are a different beast. It's a different kind of a thing compared to vertexes. The UVs are coordinates for texturing, and it has nothing to do with the 3D space. So it's right click and say UVs. Select the UVs, and I'm going to move it. That. Okay, good. Now we select these edges. The edges are opposite, so I need to rotate this whole thing. I rotate like that. Edge. Oops. Move and so. Okay, great. Look at that. Oh, there's one more remaining. These two, move and so. Boom. So here it is. This is now to move it. See, that's messed up. So what we do is to move the entire thing. You can either drag across, or you see simply double click there. Okay, so this is great. So what we got here is a continuous texture design, or a UV design. And as long as we fit it within this, we are all good. Now I can move it, you can scale it evenly. Oh wait, this is the edge. Okay, never mind. Okay, so you can see that this space got wasted, that space got wasted. That's fine. Now what we're going to do is this. We have this going here. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to apply a temporary texture to check to see if there are any stretching issues. Because remember I told you that if anything is relatively smaller or larger than its neighbors, or the other parts of this object, you'll see that some stretching happens. And this is how you can test it. You go to your hypergraph, hypershade, panel, hypershade. This is hypershade, and there's one window missing. This is browser. Here it is. And I'll go ahead and make a temporary texture. Go to blend. Let's make it blend, and I'll call this blend temp. Double click, and what we do is this. I'm going to create a checkerboard texture. So here, like this is how you do it. Double click this. Go to, instead of color, you just click on this button here, and you choose instead. Normally we would choose file, that is, we bring in a texture into this. But now we simply are going straight to something called checker. Click on it, and you have checker. Now to get into the checker, actually this is fine. See, this is what I'm gonna to adjust, but I want to show you how to reach this panel even if you click away. So what you do is you simply click back on this, then click on this, click on this. So you're here, and click that little arrow. Okay, and that's how you get to the repeat. Okay, so once more. Actually, never mind. I haven't applied this yet. So once I make the blend, let's go and apply it. And here's how you do it. You simply select this, right click, and say assign. Good. Now, it's possible that you would be in 5, at which point you won't see the texture. So you have to press 6. 6 is texture. 6 is texture. Remember that. Now, notice that this texture showed up here also. And that's good. And that's because I have this pressed down. Right? So this one. All right. Remember I told you that texture is going to be square shape. Here it is, square shape. Now, if this is, sometimes it's very hard to see the shells with texture, and hence there is this little button. So click on this to, well, actually, yeah, without pressing it, it'll look like this, which is very harsh. So you click on this, and then you can adjust this. So I like to work with something like that. So I can see the texture, but it's not overwhelming. Okay, so we got this. Now, the thing is, now I need to adjust the sizes of these squares, because this in itself is not very useful. I need smaller squares because I need to check for stretching. If the squares are huge, I can tell if it's stretching or not. So double click this, you come here, and this is what I meant. So from here, you go to this little button here, click on it, and you reach repeat. See, it's currently at 4. Put it like 10 each, 10 and 10. So this is U and this is V. Okay, UV. That's repeat UV. So this is good. Maybe 10 is not enough. Let's go for 15. It has to be small, but not so small. There you go. Now, if any particular side is more stretchy, it will be, you'll see that firstly you'll see the squares are not squares, it'll be rectangles. That means it's being stretched. And let me show you how that works. This will, currently this is a perfect UV design. That's why you won't see this issue. So let's say I chose not to have these sewn and attached very perfectly. So for example, okay, let's say I have all this as separate things, okay? And notice this, guys. Let's say I accidentally squashed it. Notice what happens. So this is a signature of a bad, like this is good, bit white, square, perfect square, perfect square. Whoa, not good. This should tell you that this is not good, okay? And this happened because I accidentally or not squashed it. You should never squash these things, because you know there's a good reason why when you make these UVs, you say create planar. There's a good reason you say keep image height width ratio, because I want it to be the same height width ratio. Like if I don't have it, it'll look like this. Actually, that's not. Well, this is also why. I need to first choose the right axis. Okay, if you don't choose this, it'll look like this. Okay. It's square for sure, but actually it's not quite square. See, it's kind of a weird looking thing. So, and it's look, it doesn't look right. Its proportion is off. So what you do is you say keep height width ratio, and then you apply. Then it looks perfect. So there's a good reason why you do that. It's to make sure that you get nice, clean squares. Okay, so now I can bring it back. First, let me flip it. First flip. Modify, flip, then scale it to the side And so the more I scale it, if it's smaller, the squares go larger. That's also bad because you want the squares to look the same size. So the more close it is, accurately sized it is, the squares will look the same. So if it's huge, squares look small. That's not good. If it's small, the squares look huge. That's also not good, but it has to be exact. Okay. And that's what it's all about. So you can see that the reason I need to now match it together is because so that the textures match. See how it's not exactly matching. So when I say move, if I move this shell to really close, it'll match. Let's scale it first. Okay. And to be exact, you should sew it. Select these two and say cut and say move and sew. Boom. Like that. Now it's an exact match. Now you can see that these squares kind of curl around and match it up perfectly. I know there was a lot to take in, guys, so I will make planar tutorials piece by piece of each of these things I showed, but there you have it. So what you're going to do now is I want you guys to do this. I want you to now create a checker map, checker material, a checkerboard material applied to the object. Then see how your textures are looking now, and then I want you to use move, rotate, and sew to create one continuous UV layout for this object. And then what you do is when you're done, actually let me just complete this. Where's move, so move, there we go. And then when you're done, you right click and you take that UV snapshot. Click, image, UV snapshot. We'll call it 2, apply. And then what you'll see is it'll look pretty much the same, but except it's a different design. Here, like that. There you have it.